You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin. You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
You're tuned in to NightVision Radio, exposing the truth one secret at a time. Prepare yourself as we explore the shadow worlds of suppressed history, secret knowledge, forbidden religion, and shine a light on the conspiracies to keep it all from us. Welcome to NightVision Radio.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to NightVision Radio. Have a special show planned for tonight, but before we get started with our guests, I'd like to remind you that returntotheTroubadour.com has a music contest that is ongoing. They believe, and we believe, I believe it too, that music can change the world. So Return of the Troubadour is looking for a particular song, and anyone can submit. Look on their website for the details, but they're looking for a song that has a positive effect on humanity. So it could be any style of music, but it needs to be something that will uplift humanity in general or uplift the individual. So please look at returntotheTroubadour.com, get the details, like them on Facebook, and get ready because the contest is really cool. It's coming up. I think the submissions are going to end in a couple of months. And the first prize, I know, is going to be $5,000 in gold coins. So that should be a really, really nice gift for someone. And, the songs that sort of provide the soundtracks of our lives, just ring in all of our ears. And there's all kinds of effects that music has on us as far as, rousing us to war or bringing us to a peaceful place in our hearts, which is where we're looking to go. So please look at returntotheTroubadour.com. And there'll also be some celebrity musicians that will be involved in the judging. One I can tell you about for sure right now is John Payne, who's the lead singer of the group Asia and also has his own new band called GPS. He's a wonderful singer, songwriter, composer, and musician, and he's going to be helping us out with the contest, and so is his colleagues. So please go look at returntotheTroubadour.com because music can change the world. Well, tonight we have a really unusual story, maybe not unusual for all of us who are interested in these types of subject matters, because we've all heard or met someone who's had experiences with other beings, extra-terrestrials. We've characterized them in the past as alien abductees, and I'm not sure how that title fits with my guest tonight, but our guest is David Huggins. He's an artist, a painter from Hoboken, New Jersey, and he's been characterized as an outsider artist, and he had these lifelong experiences which he had trouble sort of processing until he began to paint them. And he's got some incredible work. We're going to be putting some of the images up in the chat room, so please join us in the live chat room tonight at InceptionRadioNetwork.com. If you're listening to us, just click on chat and join us, and we'll be taking questions, especially later on in the show, from the chat room that are geared toward our guests. Also, along with David, we have Brad Abrahams, who's a young filmmaker based in the United States and in Canada. And he came across David's story, became very intrigued by it, and is now in process of creating a documentary on David's life. So welcome, both David and Brad. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, now, David, I want to start with you because the story is all about you. Now, when do you feel that you first began to have, these experiences with other beings? I won't call them extraterrestrials because I think, as you agree, we don't know exactly where these beings are from.
That's true. I don't know. But
when did you first?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I was just going to say again, when did you first figure out that you were having this kind of connection?
I didn't start remembering until 1987.
Now, how did that happen? I know a lot of people that have had experiences said they knew something was going on, they just couldn't figure out what it was, and it might have come out in therapy or hypnotherapy. They started remembering things, but did you start remembering on your own, or was it drawn out of you from something?
Actually, it was kind of very weird. I was having a very hard time during 1987, and I had heard about Whitney Strieber, and I read her book. I read his book called Communion, and for some reason it rung a bell, but I couldn't understand it really. And we used to have a bookstore on 8th and Washington Street here in Hoboken. And I happened to go in. I was looking for a certain book. I think it was called Intruders. He didn't have it. So
Bud
anyway,
Hopkins.
I went. Yes.
That was by Bud Hopkins, yep.
Yes, it was. And he said there was another bookstore down the street. So I go down to the other street, other bookstore. They don't have it. And I start walking back. And the guy comes out of the first bookstore that I had gone to, and he says, "Hey, David, listen, I've got your book." And I says, "What do you mean you got my book? I thought you didn't have any." And he says, "This woman, she came in, and she left the book for you." And I thought that was very strange. I didn't know who it was. Anyway, I got the book, and I get to a certain chapter called Other Women, Other Men. And there is a incident in the book where this guy is having sex with this woman. And he's lying on the bed.
Was this the Intruders book?
I think, yes, it was.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I get to that chapter, and I go, oh, my God, here's the woman I never told anyone about. And I started having all these memories come rushing back to me. And I remember my very first episode which was with, a little hairy guy with glowing eyes. I was 8 years old. I was living on a farm in Georgia, and I was behind the barn, and I was digging at the base of a tree. And I hear somebody say, "David, behind you." And I turn around, and I see this little hairy guy coming straight toward me. I mean, I couldn't move. I had never seen anything like this in my life. Anyway, it was like I was drawn into his eyes, and then suddenly I was let out of them. And I rushed back, yelling and screaming, and I run toward the barn. And as I get to the barn, I turn around, and whatever this little being is, he had turned and was walking back into the woods. And that was my first experiences.
And, I mean, do you feel like that was connected to these later experiences with these women, these sexual experiences? Or do you think this was just another kind of contact? You're reminding me of stories that I heard when I talked to people. I did a documentary film called Bigfootville in southeastern Oklahoma, southwestern Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas all meet together in a corner.
To begin my first painting, I was having a very hard time. I was sleepless. I didn't know how to handle it. until one morning I just got up and I started doing my first painting. I worked on it all day and then during the night. And that night, after I had finished the painting, I got a very good night's sleep.
That's really interesting. Now, so you weren't really painting before? Had you been an artist before? Or
no, I had been painting before. No, I had been doing other paintings before. But I never thought I would ever be doing paintings like this.
Wow. And so what was the first painting that you did? What did it depict?
It showed a head coming up over a bush. All you see is the top of the head and its eyes. And basically what had happened is that I was going over to see some friends of mine, and they lived about half a mile away. And so what I did is I took the shortcut behind the barn. And as I'm going through the woods, I get this feeling that I'm being watched. But I don't see anything until I get to the field, and there is this path, and I start to go down it, and I hear a sound, and I look around, and I see this head, and I was thinking, is that a head? Are those eyes? And the next thing I know is that, and the next incident I know is that I am lying on the ground, all curled up into a ball, scared out of my wits.
Wow. And so somehow, though, the act of painting these images, did you feel like it was some kind of a release for you? Did you feel like this was all pent up? And, you said you hadn't really shared it with people.
Yes, it was a release. No doubt about it. I felt so much better after I had done the painting. And then I continued doing the paintings.
And
anyway,
do you continue to stay?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry?
I was asking Brad, how did you come across the story? How did you and David meet?
Well, it was a few years back. I happened to just be listening to a podcast that had an interview with a investigator of UFO abductions. I can't remember the host of the podcast or where it was from exactly. But in his discussion, he made a brief mention of this man from Hoboken who'd had intimate relations with an extraterrestrial and had actually fathered children with them and chronicled it in a series of paintings. And it was just, at the time, for me, it was just so surreal I couldn't forget it. And soon after, did some research and started to slowly uncover his story and some of David's art. And there wasn't much out there on the web at the time, but eventually I tracked down a book by a neighbor of his, Farah Yurtzu, I believe that's how you pronounce your last name, which was just a small book that had some of his paintings and a little bit of his story in it. And the moment I laid eyes on the paintings, I just immediately started envisioning them in motion. And even when you hear David talk about them, there's something very cinematic about them and all of the details.
Mm-hmm.
And then just I contacted Farah, and the publisher got David's phone number from them and gave him a call. He was open to the idea of a film. And we just started having conversations on the phone. And that's when it was, revealed to me that David's the most, just by contrast to how crazy the story sounds at first blush, he's just, a humble, mild-mannered, down-to-earth guy that just happened to have these very out-of-the-ordinary experiences happen to him.
Well, I know when we talked on the phone, Brad, before, you were struck by, how genuine David came across to you. And I guess that's what the interest was. It wasn't someone trying to get attention at all. In fact, he was kind of, in obscurity in regards to these particular paintings. He wasn't really that keen on on being out there in the public eye. I think he's kind of a reluctant person in that way, and which adds to his credibility, I would say.
Right. Yeah. It's always kind of a red flag when someone's just all out there, and there was just something authentic about David and the way he told his story, and just that he wasn't out there, and it just so happened that he felt like it was the right time to tell it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a timing for everything, and there's probably more acceptance, now than there would have been back in the 80s, I would imagine. Now, David, when you said you fathered children, in the chat room is buzzing about the babies and the baby in the tube and the kids. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How did you know you fathered children? Were they?
And there is this woman, and she says to me, David, the baby's dying. And I go, baby? What baby? Your baby, but it's dying. And I remember saying, let me see my baby. At first, she wouldn't do it. And then after a couple of times, after I had yelled it out, she picked the baby up and she held the baby and took it out front of her. I remember her lowering her head. And then I said, no, don't hold the baby like that. Cradle the baby in your arms. Listen, I got to get there. She says, no, it's not allowed. And I said, my baby's dying and I can't get there. Watch this. And I remember lying down on my bed, and then I passed out. And the next thing I know, I'm there. And I stand up, and one of the insect beings comes over to me, and in no certain terms, he asked me, what am I doing here? And I says, I want my baby. My baby is dying. I want to see and touch my baby. And at first, he said no. And then I just got down on my knees and I begged him. And they were rather surprised that I did that. And then he acquiesced. And he took me over to this woman who was holding a baby in her arms. Now, what was interesting is that when I first saw them, it seemed to be a white screen in front of them, like a black ink drawing, like the hair, the eyes, and the arms, but there was no detail. Anyway, I leaned forward, and the screen disappeared, and I saw them as they were. And I drew back, and then the screen filled in, and then I leaned forward again, and I reached over, and I touched the baby. And as I touched the baby, a static, I don't know what you would call it, static electricity jumped from me to the baby. And I turned to the insect being, and I said, wow, did you see that? Let me do that again. And so I did it again with the same result. And then it was like everybody got excited. And the other insect beings, they were gone. Maybe they had children of their own. I don't know, but they were gone. But the insect being that was with me turned, and I knew I should follow him. And we go into this other room, and there are all these babies in this room. They're stacked on top of each other. And it's like, whoa, whose babies are these? And he points to me. I mean, I nearly fall down.
How many were there?
Oh, man, I can't give you an exact number. I just know that there were a lot.
Like more than 10?
Oh, yes. I would say...
Like 100?
Maybe. I wish I could tell you. I just know that there were so many babies in this room, and they were all mine. And what I wound up doing is that I wound up touching all the babies. For some reason, the human touch was very beneficial and helped the babies in some way. And the babies lived.
Wow. Now, when you said, you said don't hold the baby like that, and you said to show her how to cradle the baby in her arms, that kind of makes one think that perhaps they don't have quite the same emotional makeup that human beings do.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, it was like when I told the woman, cradle the baby in the arms, she was very interested in what I was doing, what I was trying to show her. And so when I saw her, she was holding the baby properly.
So you think that from that point forward, that they sort of learned something from you as a human about how to care for these hybrid babies?
Yeah, I would think so, yes.
And now, for those who are not looking at the images, could you describe what the babies look like, or like the baby that was presented to you first?
Okay, it had a large head, large eyes. Its arms and legs were pencil thin, and it had a small, chest and abdomen. But what struck me was how thin the arms and legs were.
And did they look human?
Actually, when I saw them as babies, no, they didn't. It was later when I saw them that they looked like half human, half alien, or whatever.
And what did you feel with the baby?
It was kind of interesting. I was rather happy about it. I mean, I remember
as a father.
Yeah, right. As a father, I mean, what can I say? I mean, I was very happy about it.
That's really, really interesting. Now, once you had this experience of them showing you the baby, and then you saw all the babies and touched all the babies, then how did your experiences continue after that? Were they pretty much in the same vein, or did something
Actually,
change?
it was kind of interesting. I remember before I started remembering, or during this time when I was having these experiences, I would wake up in the morning and I'd hear this voice saying, "We'll be back tonight." And then I would forget it. And this goes on for a very long time, until there was one time where I heard those words, and that time I did not forget. I was having a very hard time during that day. And what I did is that at the end of that day, I was going home, and I was passing this florist. And I thought to myself, okay, if this is real, then I'll go inside and I'll buy some flowers. And they had these pink cyclamens in the window. This was late fall, early winter. And so I go in and I buy the flowers and I take them home. I put them on a bookshelf. That night, I go to bed. I don't remember a thing. And I wake up in the morning and I turn to the bookshelf, but there's nothing on it. And I was sure that I had put something on the bookshelf, but I just could not remember what it was. But I had to get down to the Art Students League. So I got dressed and everything, and I headed down, and I totally forgot about it as soon as I shut the door. And I'm at the league, I'm working in the gallery, and around 12:30, it was lunchtime, and somebody comes up to relieve me. And I go down to the first floor. And I go to the back studios, and I pass Mario C. Cooper's watercolor class, and it is filled with flowers. And suddenly, I remember about me buying the flowers and putting them on the a bookshelf, and her taking them. And I remember saying, "She took the flowers. This is real. This is not some imagination." And then that's what happened. After that, I started, going home after work and everything, waiting for them.
Wow. That is wild. We're going to have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll hear some more from David Huggins the artist who's had, practically lifelong experiences with strange beings, and Brett Abrahams, the filmmaker who's documenting it all. So stay tuned, and we shall be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to Night Vision Radio. I'm your host, René Barnett, and with me tonight are David Huggins, outsider artist and lifelong abductee, I guess we call her contactee, might be a better word, and Brett Abrahams, the filmmaker who is documenting the whole story. So, David, back to your experiences with these alien women. Now, with all these babies, I'm assuming that you didn't just have relations with one particular being. It was different women.
No, there were a few others. I think what they were able to do is just take one sperm, fertilize an egg, and the baby is born. That's the best way I can tell you.
Like much more efficient than the human way, I guess. Hit or miss.
Yeah. And I had known a few of them, but Crescent was the main woman that I had relationships with.
Now, when you remember, let's just take Crescent, for instance, did you have an emotional connection with her?
At first, no, but it evolved. And, I just got to know her very well. There was one time where I got the impression she was wearing a wig. And I remember her taking the wig off, and I saw her the way she was. But if for some reason it didn't matter. That's really all I can say, actually.
And when you remember the sexual aspect of it,
yes, I do.
Did it feel like, you were just having sex? Was there something extra or something different about it? How did it make you feel?
Well, there was a kind of foreplay that occurred where we wound up rubbing our heads with each other. And then we would have sex. And actually, it was quite pleasant. And I got the impression in the beginning it was very, unemotional for her. But then later, it seemed to be quite very nice for her.
So, did you ever feel that there was an emotional attachment for you by her or any of those beings? That they cared about you?
I know that they cared a great deal about me. They saved my life a couple of times.
How so?
Well, there was one time when I was a kid, we had a tool shed, and me and my brother, we used to go underneath it and play. And one morning, I was about to go underneath it, and one of the little grays came out from the opening which me and my brother had dug. I get up, and I started running away. And then I hear my name being called, and I turn around, and there is the woman. So anyway, I go back to the tool shed. She puts her arms around me, and then as we watch, I see a large black snake come out of underneath the tool shed about where I was about to go. It could have been rather crazy for me, I think. And anyway, the snake slid off into the grass, and that was it.
Oh, that's really wild. Now, these beings, you said you sort of saw behind the veil, basically. And when you saw that, you said, I saw them as they really were. And was that when you saw them as these insectoid beings?
There's basically 3 or 4 types of beings that I know of. There are these insect-like beings that resemble praying mantis. There are the females. There is another person who, I don't know, he seems to be in charge of what's going on. He's rather tall, very thin, and he has like a knob growing up on the back of his head. And then there is the, let me see, well, the little grays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they all seem to be working together.
Yeah. Were there
they
any
seem to
that
be
looked
working
human?
together.
Were there any of these beings that looked human, but you knew that they were not?
I can't say yes to that. No, I really don't remember anything like that.
I mean, you hear people describing, people that looked Nordic, these blonde, beautiful beings. You also hear people when they talk about their experiences, sometimes they'll see someone who seems to be like a military person around. But it was really just you and the beings. And
yeah, that was it.
Not really human intervention into that.
Right. If I had met some humans, I have not remembered it.
And before you started to paint, did you see these experiences or whatever it was that you were able to remember as being something really scary? Or did you see it as something being really wonderful or just puzzling?
Actually, I often think of it as being scary and wonderful at the same time. Mm-hmm. I remember how scared I was as a kid. And, but afterwards, it got to be, I don't know, just something that had happened, It was just something that was going on with me. I wasn't bothered by it.
Well, obviously these guys were in control.
Oh, yes, yes, no doubt about it. I mean, I have a feeling. How did you feel
about that?
Well,
I was sort of like unwittingly being taken along here into this experience.
Well, I don't know. I often think it was really kind of up to me. I remember there was one time when after I had had sex with one of the women, I was getting ready to go to school, and the little hairy guy came into my room, and he was just looking at me, and he said, "David, can we use your body?" And I said, "Yeah, you can use it as much as you like." I had mentioned this to Hopkins, and he said something which I thought was very interesting. He says, "You were programmed to say that." And then I says, "Well, you may be right. All I know is that they asked me."
And so you did actually connect with Bud Hopkins, who was one of the original alien abduction researchers in New York there. And he was a hypnotherapist and an artist as well, as you know, I'm sure. And he did a lot of work in that area. So I was hoping that you had met up with Bud. He was a great guy, by the way. And so did you feel like meeting up with Bud and anyone else that had either had similar experiences or worked with people that had similar experiences, did that make you feel better as far as what was happening to you?
Actually,
did you think you were the only one, I guess,
better. Yeah, it was. I was feeling better. And I did go to some groups where people were abductees or experiences, as you may call them. And I told them my story, and I just felt better afterwards.
That's interesting. Now, did he hypnotize you? Unusual beings. We won't call them extraterrestrial because we don't really know. Could be interdimensional. They could be living right here in our space, just right behind the veil. We just don't know. But David has been documenting his experiences in his paintings for a number of years now, and they are quite interesting. If you just tuned in, please click on the chat room, and in the live chat room, we are posting lots of pictures that David has painted of his experiences, and they're really quite interesting. Now, David, I'm going to start getting into some of the questions from the chat room, and as I was telling you both during the break, I've sort of been incorporating some of them as we've gone along, but Bill in New York would like to know if you ever suffered any painful events from any of the examinations Or
There's
anything that they did to you?
There's only one time where I had a painful event. I was 8 years old. The little Grays were standing outside my window. They come inside, they take me out, and we float up to some type of vehicle. And I go inside, and there is the woman, Crescent. And there is this little gray guy with me, and I look at him, I ask him if she is his mom. He gives me a wink of a smile. The woman smiles also. And then I notice that she has some type of rod in her hand, and she inserts it up my nostril. And she took it out, and I remember saying, "You hurt me, it hurts." And then she says, "I'll make the pain go away." As far as I know, that was the only time where I have ever known any pain.
Well, in Neutron in the chat room wants to know if you've ever had an out-of-body experience during an encounter.
I would say yes. That time where I had, when the woman had said to me, the baby was dying, and I said, "Listen, I got to get there," and I went and I laid down on my bed, and I passed out. And the next thing I know is that I'm there. I'm thinking that was an out-of-the-body experience.
Oh, well, I remember that story. I recall you telling it a few minutes ago, and that did sound like that's what happened. You kind of just zoomed out.
Right. Yeah. I just passed out, and the next thing I knew, I was there, wherever there is.
And Bill also wants to know if you've suffered any physical anomalies from this relationship, any physical effects.
No, I'm quite healthy. I don't get colds. I rarely, if ever, get sick. No, I'm quite healthy.
Do you feel that your connection with them has sort of boosted your health or your immune system? Or
Well, there was an incident that occurred where after I had touched all the babies as I had mentioned before, the next morning when I woke up, I was so weak, I could barely move. A friend of mine who lived down below me came up, and she knocked on the door, and she asked me how I was feeling. I said, "I feel bad." So she made some soup for me, and anyway, I laid in the bed all day. And that night, I am with the insect-like being, and there is this room which I had to go inside. It was filled with light, and he wanted me to go inside. At first, I didn't, because I got the impression that what I was looking at could think. And I don't know how to say it. But anyway, I do go inside this room, and there's all this light, and it just fills me. And the next morning when I wake up, I am fit as a fiddle. I feel like I could jump over a car. And then this feeling lasted for weeks.
And when you communicated with the beings, were you just talking to them as you'd be talking to me? And did they speak back to you?
They would talk back, but I think it was like telepathy. I could understand them, and they could understand me.
And were you talking out loud to them, or were you?
Yes, I would talk out loud. I would talk out loud.
Unusual beings. We won't call them extraterrestrial because we don't really know. Could be interdimensional. They could be living right here in our space, just right behind the veil. We just don't know. But David has been documenting his experiences in his paintings for a number of years now, and they are quite interesting. If you just tuned in, please click on the chat room, and in the live chat room, we are posting lots of pictures that David has painted of his experiences, and they're really quite interesting. Now, David, I'm going to start getting into some of the questions from the chat room, and as I was telling you both during the break. I've sort of been incorporating some of them as we've gone along, but Bill in New York would like to know if you ever suffered any painful events from any of the examinations. Or
There's only one time where I had a painful event. I was 8 years old. The little Grays were standing outside my window. They come inside, they take me out, and we float up to some type of vehicle. And I go inside, and there is the woman, Crescent. And there is this little gray guy with me, and I look at him, I ask him if she is his mom. He gives me a wink of a smile. The woman smiles also. And then I notice that she has some type of rod in her hand, and she inserts it up my nostril. And she took it out, and I remember saying, "You hurt me, it hurts." And then she says, "I'll make the pain go away." As far as I know, that was the only time where I have ever known any pain.
Well, in Neutron in the chat room wants to know if you've ever had an out-of-body experience during an encounter.
I would say yes. That time where I had, when the woman had said to me, the baby was dying, and I said, "Listen, I got to get there," and I went and I laid down on my bed, and I passed out. And the next thing I know is that I'm there. I'm thinking that was an out-of-the-body experience.
Oh, well, I remember that story. I recall you telling that a few minutes ago, and that did sound like that's what happened. You kind of just zoomed out.
Right. Yeah. I just passed out, and the next thing I knew, I was there, wherever there is.
And Bill also wants to know if you've suffered any physical anomalies from this relationship, any physical effects.
No, I'm quite healthy. I don't get colds. I rarely, if ever, get sick. No, I'm quite healthy.
Do you feel that your connection with them has sort of boosted your health or your immune system? Or
Well, there was an incident that occurred where after I had touched all the babies as I had mentioned before, the next morning when I woke up, I was so weak I could barely move. A friend of mine who lived down below me came up, and she knocked on the door, and she asked me how I was feeling. I said, "I feel bad." So she made some soup for me, and anyway, I laid in the bed all day. And that night, I am with the insect-like being, and there is this room which I had to go inside. It was filled with light, and he wanted me to go inside. At first, I didn't, because I got the impression that what I was looking at could think. And I don't know how to say it. But anyway, I do go inside this room, and there's all this light, and it just fills me. And the next morning when I wake up, I am fit as a fiddle. I feel like I could jump over a car. And then this feeling lasted for weeks.
And when you communicated with the beings, were you just talking to them as you'd be talking to me, and did they speak back to you?
They would talk back, but I think it was like telepathy. I could understand them, and they could understand me.
And were you talking out loud to them, or were you?
Yes, I would talk out loud. I would talk out loud.
Did you continue to see the babies? Do you still see the children, or?
Yes, I did. I saw the children growing up. These experiences that I had lasted for years. And I would see the children at different stages, as babies, as toddlers, as children, and as adults.
And how did they respond to you as children and adults? once they were
children,
able to?
I mean, there was one time where I was playing hide and seek with the children. They seemed very happy that I was out there playing with them.
Did they talk to you?
You know, I don't remember them talking to me so much as we were just playing. If they said something, I can't remember what it was.
And this question that I think you've already answered, actually, from Carol, she asked it earlier on, but we kept it. Have you ever undergone any hypnosis to retrieve more detail?
No, I haven't. I haven't gone through any hypnosis at all.
Is that on purpose?
Well, you know, in a way, I kind of think it is. I mean, if there is a memory that I'm going to remember, then let it come in its own time. I don't want to force it.
Yeah. And then what about other members of your family and, you know, close people close to you? How have they reacted once you started remembering and doing these paintings? Have they said to you, oh, gee, yeah, I saw that myself, or I remember something? I mean, you know, a lot of times you hear these things being generational. And, you know, it's happened to the parents, and then it happens to the kids, and then their kids. And
as far as I know, I'm the only one in my family that's had these experiences. I don't remember my brother or my two sisters having any experiences at all.
And how do they feel about you having had these experiences, or feeling that you have?
Well, I don't know how to really say it, but, you know, they kind of think I'm a little strange.
Yeah.
But they take it for what it's worth.
But, you know, it's funny because, you know, you do run into some people who claim to have these experiences, and it does seem like, you know, they've got other troubles, you know, that they have some psychological problems or something like that. But it sounds to me like you're a pretty down-to-earth guy, pardon the pun, you know. And I know from my conversations with Brad, you know, that was his thing is, you know, he's just a genuine guy. He's very down-to-earth. You know, it would seem, you know, sort of interesting or difficult, I guess, to understand from a person like you know, who in all respects is, you know, just a regular person, but just has these incredibly extraordinary events occurring in their life.
Yeah, but, you know, it isn't just me. There are so many others who are having experiences. And they seem to be doing pretty well, at least the ones that I know.
Yes.
So, you know, I mean, it isn't just me. It's, I don't know, it could be millions of other people who are having these experiences. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Were you ever able to find out, you know, exactly what it is that they are trying to do, and, you know, what their sort of final, I guess, you know, we were talking about possibilities of, you know, their physiology sort of breaking down and they needed to strengthen it. Or, you know, other people have sort of put out a theory that, you know, their planet is dying and they're going to have to move to Earth, and so they have to develop these, you know, at least half human bodies in order to live in our atmosphere and this, that, and the other. Has any of that ever come up in any of your dealings?
No, it never has.
Did you ask them, why are you doing this?
Actually, they told me that I would find out later. And basically, it was to produce children. But they never told me the reason behind it.
I see. Now, Brad, with the movie that you have coming up, can you give us out your website, please, so we can all have a look and all the listeners can check out the trailer?
Sure, yeah, it's just my name, bradabrahams.net, and that's a site that's mainly for my commercial work, but there's a link to the trailer there, and there's not really any info up yet, just the trailer and a few photos.
And that's Abrahams with an S on the end.
Yeah.
BradAbrahams.com. That's great. And
.net.
.net. Oh, thanks for pointing that out. And so what are the plans now? I know that, you're working on a lot of different things, and I think you kind of got a little bit of a surprise once the word about this project started getting out at how much attention it was actually gaining.
Yeah, I shot with David just over a year ago. I spent a few days with him and shot a pretty good amount of material, probably enough for about a third of the project or a little more than that. And then other things took over, and it's sort of laying dormant. But there's definitely a lot of inspiration and impetus to continue now. So probably
right.
Yeah, probably going the route of crowdfunding at some point in the near future.
Indiegogo, here we come.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, do let us know, because,
Sure.
We all want to see this kind of information coming out, and we're interested in that. So, people get behind projects that they believe in,
right,
and that they want to see come to fruition. So, it's a good way to go. I've had some success with that myself on projects, and then I've had some friends that have, done bigger projects and funded them on Indiegogo and had great success with that. So good luck.
Thank you.
With that, in lieu of getting a network to pick up on it immediately and fund it themselves,
right.
That's a good way to go.
Right.
Yeah. Now, so did you say you just did some filming?
Yeah, we did filming a year ago. That's what's in the trailer.
And that's what we're seeing in the trailer.
Yeah, and there's a lot more, probably enough for 20 or 30 minutes of content that David and I had done together, and still need to shoot a little more with him, more of his paintings, as well as also looping other people in, just to get a sort of larger perspective about what's going on or what could be going on in David's case.
Mm. And David, is the film something that you wanted to do, or you're reluctant to do it? Did Brad have to twist your arm? How did that happen?
No, nothing like that. I mean, I would like to do a film of it. I'm basically kind of working on a script now.
Oh, for a feature film? For a feature film?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
And it has a lot of the experiences that I had in the script.
Oh, and, wow.
So I've been working on that. There's one thing I learned about writing a film script. It is hard. I don't care what anybody says. It is difficult.
It really is. Well, I'd be interested to see it once you're done. That'd be really interesting. And I know Brad's probably going to be helping out with that as well.
And he's writing it by hand, not on.
Oh my goodness! Well, that is hard.
It's like, when I started writing it in longhand, I started remembering things that I had forgotten.
Oh.
Yeah,
so
and I'm putting that in the script.
I can see how that might work. Yeah, you start working on it, and then more stuff starts sort of coming forth.
Through.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the last experience that you remember, and when was it?
It was the last one that I experienced was a couple of years ago that I remember. I had a painting which was called the alien in the envelope, plastic envelope. And it had gotten damaged. And I was retouching it, and I was working on it, and I was thinking to myself, I wonder if they still use these bodies anymore. And that night when I go to sleep, I find myself with these beings, and they look quite human, and they said, David, we have new bodies now.
Oh. And you said they looked human.
Yes, they did.
Even the eyes and...
Yeah, they just looked human. I mean, I don't know what else to say. And they said, we have new bodies now.
Did they
you can take that in a lot of different directions. What?
Did they indicate to you how that happened? How did they get the new bodies?
I don't know. I mean, it was like the children that I fathered. That's the only way I can put it. I really just don't know. I just find it unusual that they should say, David, we have new bodies now.
Oh. Now, these children, you said you followed some right up into adulthood.
Yes.
And when they were older, young adults, did they understand the relationship with you and who you were? And
yes, they did, as a matter of fact.
What did they call you?
I remember a time where I saw several young people walking along, and I pick out this one young man, and he comes over to me, and we just look at each other. I'm rather embarrassed. I think he is too. And I remember him saying, I'm your son. And then that was it. I didn't hug him or anything. And then he turned, and as he was turning away, I says, son, you take care of yourself. And he nodded his head, and that was it.
Oh. And how did that make you feel? Was it sad or was it good?
No, I mean, I wasn't sad. It was just the way it was. I mean, he had lived there. I had lived here.
And this, you said the last experience you remember was 2 years ago.
Yes. If I've had any experiences, I have not remembered them.
You've not remembered them yet. I see.
Right.
What's your sense that they are ongoing, or do you feel that you sort of fulfilled
I think they're ongoing, but they're not as frequent as they were. They're very infrequent now. I mean, I'm 71 years old, and all I can say is that's that. It's that if I remembered something, if I had remembered something, say, from last week, I would tell you. But I just don't remember.
Right. And really, sort of your entire experience, basically has been, it seemed the reason for it was fathering these children, bringing these children into creation.
There was a very kind of funny episode that I remember where there were several women and they were holding babies. And one of the women was sitting down, and she took her breast out from her gown, and she was like trying to tell me that she can't give milk. And I said, I don't understand. I mean, you have a baby, you should be able to. So what happened is that I asked her if I could nurse on her breast. Maybe I could stimulate the glands or whatever. It didn't work. And she was looking at me. I was rather embarrassed by it. And then somebody comes over with a bowl, just like I was 24 or 25 years old. Yeah, I felt as if I was a baby. And it was basically instinctual. And after I had finished, they did it again, and they placed one of the babies on her breast. And the baby started nursing the food. I don't know, maybe there's a certain empathy or whatever, but it's like the babies knew how to nurse after I had started nursing.
Wow. And you said they placed a bowl of something on her breast?
They took some type of dark liquid, and they smeared it on her breast.
Oh.
And then I felt somebody pushing my head forward, and I started nursing on her breast. But I didn't feel like a young adult. I really felt as if for an instant I was a baby feeding on my mother's breast.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird.
And was there a taste?
I'm sorry?
Was there a taste to that black stuff that they
I
sniffed?
don't remember a taste. No, I don't. I don't remember a taste. It's like your senses are subdued when you're around them.
Mm. So you feel that, you know, all your senses were sort of subdued, including, you know, your excitability and all that sort of thing. It was probably a way to, you know, keep people from freaking out, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I would have freaked out if there wasn't a certain amount of control over me.
Right. Right. It might have been a more unpleasant experience had it not been for that. In a way, I guess, in a way, it's sort of, you know, you feel like, oh, gee, I'm being controlled. In another way, it's like, but if I wasn't, I would be totally wigging out right now.
Yes.
So they might have been doing you a favor.
Oh, yes, I think so.
And now, you know, at the end of the day, how do you feel about the total experience? Do you marvel at it? Are you glad that it happened? Do you kind of wish it had a more normal existence?
Actually, you know, I mean, if anything, it's kind of helped me in a way. I mean, I just don't look upon life as just normal, whatever life is. It's like I know that there is something more to life. And I'm not talking about any religious or anything. There's just something about living your life as best as you know how.
And do you feel like that's a message that they conveyed to you, or that's just what you drew on your own from the whole experience?
I think from the experience, I do it on my own.
And did they ever have a message that, you know, they wanted you to deliver to people or anything like that?
Well, there was this one time where, as a kid, on some type of ship or whatever it is, I have no idea what it is, but I'm looking out this window, and I see the earth in the distance, and I'm looking at it, and I say, oh, that's so pretty, it's so pretty, and I hear somebody say, something so pretty should be taken care of. And I remember just nodding my head up and down, and that was it.
Wow. Well, that's just amazing. Amazing. And do you plan to continue the paintings?
Oh, yes. I'm reworking a painting now that I had done, which I'm not very satisfied with. And so I'm working on that right now.
And by not satisfied, is it, you know, you don't feel like you got the details right or of that particular experience?
Yeah, it just doesn't feel right. I mean, there are times when I'll do a painting 3 or 4 times trying to get it right. And this one is that I'm just basically going to rework and see how it comes out.
Do you ever feel like they are giving you the ideas to paint? Oh, you know what? I hear the music going.
Oh,
we're gonna have to go, but I want to thank you, David Huggins and Brad Abrahams, for joining us for a really interesting show. Everybody loved it, and we're going to look for your paintings, and we're definitely going to look for the film to come out. So thank you both.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Good night. Join us next week. It's going to be another good show. All you Rennies, get ready. And if you don't know what a Rennie is, you're probably not one, but hopefully you will be by the end of next week's show. Take care, everybody.
This